Good morning. This is Whitney from Star Hearth Astrology, and I'm here to talk about the third quarter of the lunar month, which started yesterday, August 3rd. Sorry, I'm a day behind. And also, I missed the second quarter, so if you're wondering where it is, it didn't happen because I had a baby on July 24th, right at the end of the first quarter of the lunar month, so I was not able to record the second quarter, but I'm back for the third quarter. And so we can jump right in, kind of what is happening the first little bit of August and kind of explore some of the bigger stories that will come up as we get into it. So here we go. So to kind of go over some of the big things that happened over the second quarter, was kind of a lot of transits. Monday the 27th had three big ones: Jupiter sextile Neptune, Venus square Neptune, Mercury square Mars. And I actually went over these at the end of my first quarter transits because it switched on that Monday. That Monday was the square that built up to that brought us into the bright half of the hemicycle that built up to yesterday's full moon. Then we had Venus leaving the shadow of her retrograde on Tuesday the 28th, which is really important because it is the first time we've had a kind of departure from the themes of Venus's retrograde in Gemini. And Venus has been in Gemini since April 4th, so we've really had 4 solid months of Venus in Gemini. And one of the exciting things that happens in this third quarter that we're in is that Venus is actually going to enter Cancer. So we're going to, for the first time in 4 months, have Venus outside of Gemini and exploring some new territory. So I think that will really kind of get a shift. That paired with Mercury's entrance into Leo, which happens today, tonight, should really kind of shift the energy, because those are 2 very personal planets, and Mercury has been in Cancer for 2 months when it normally, it can spend as little as 2.5 weeks in a sign, and it's been in Cancer for 2 months. And then Venus, usually spends 4 to 5 weeks in a sign and has spent 4 months in Gemini. So we will get kind of a shift change, so to speak, of those planets when they change signs for the first time in quite a while. And then we had Mercury oppose Jupiter at the very end, and that kind of brings Mercury into that tangle of the big players that we have at the end of Capricorn: Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And so Mercury is kind of making its way through oppositions to all of those. Mercury representing the mind and kind of big ideas happening with regards to solutions or fears or restrictions and limitations. And we'll see that a little bit when Mercury opposes Saturn in this third quarter. And Mercury trine Neptune at the same time. This is interesting because we had, there's a little bit of a dance there on the 30th with its opposition to Jupiter in Capricorn, but then Jupiter being the traditional ruler of Pisces, where Neptune is, and Mercury trining Neptune in Pisces. So a little bit of kind of maybe a little bit of solution focused with Mercury and Jupiter, but then kind of in non-traditional ways with Neptune in there, kind of creating expansion in the mind. And then opposing Pluto, bringing in some fear. I think we're seeing that a lot in the political dialogue, especially around the reopening of schools, right? And Mercury being the mind and how we learn things, and what that's really going to look like in the face of COVID. And then we have the Sun square Uranus. So the Sun in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. And so all of these planets, as they move through Leo, are going to come into that square with Uranus, and the sun being the first one, kind of, the possibility of kind of things coming out of left field that's really kind of shaking how we see ourselves. And I personally find that to be a fairly liberating transit. So I hope it was. We're also, Uranus is slowing down a lot, and we will come to Uranus's retrograde station here in just a bit. Okay, so that was the recap. Feel free to let me know in the comments what was happening in your life. If you felt any of these transits in particular, I'd love to hear it, and it helps me learn as well. So feel free to share them. Okay. And right, we've got the third quarter lunar phases, the full moon and the waning gibbous. So the full moon has the quality of culmination and immediate release. So we're kind of in the release of whatever we built up to. And then the waning gibbous, this kind of coasting kind of lunar phase where we really kind of are just on the track of whatever we put into place. And towards the end, we kind of begin to detach from it, right? So we had our big moment. I almost think about the waning gibbous phase being kind of, like the end of a big party or the end of a big event where you kind of, right, you kind of feel the energy drop at a certain point. And then you kind of go home and you kind of take off all of the raiment, the garments that you were wearing that kind of elevated the mood in this certain way. So it has a little bit of that energy, and then right, whatever that transition is into going to bed after a big party, it's kind of that feeling, and probably a little bit into that fourth quarter square as well. Okay, so Monday, we have the Aquarius full moon that happened at 9:58 a.m. All of these times are in Mountain Standard Time, so you can just convert them for whatever your time zone is. We had the moon in Aquarius, sextile Chiron and Aries. That's a really rational moon. Again, kind of picking up a little bit of fire. There's motion in that transit, just as we're getting into our day. The moon square Uranus and Taurus there can be a surprise that happens first thing in the morning. With that Aquarius moon squaring Uranus and Taurus, you're going to be able to navigate it pretty well because Aquarius integrates new information pretty fast, or at least knows where to put it, even if it doesn't necessarily change its mind. And then we have the full moon opposing the sun in Leo at 11 degrees and 46 minutes. That's really, so you can check where those degrees fall in your chart, which houses, and if it aspects anything. These are, Aquarius and Leo are the fixed signs. So also, if you have anything around 11 or 12 degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, it's going to be in hard aspect to that, so you can feel that a little bit stronger. This is actually dead on my ascendant-descendant axis, so my rising sign is at 11 degrees and 41 minutes, I think, of Aquarius, and so my descendant is at 11 degrees and 41 minutes of Leo. And so I really felt this transit and just all the things that are happening internally in me, and I guess externally as well, with becoming a mother and how that shifts kind of my orientation both towards myself and my understanding of myself, and then towards others. Becoming a mother being, a huge rite of passage and a really sweet opening into a way of being in the world that's filled with a lot more gentleness, a lot more kindness, and then also joy with Leo. And I had a little Leo baby, so that's pretty fun. I will probably release a video about kind of my birth story and the astrology of my birth story and a little bit of my son's astrology as well here in a bit. So you guys can let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in or not. Either way is all good. Okay, 3 p.m., Mercury opposes Saturn in Capricorn. So again, this is kind of the third of those big 3 oppositions that happens to anything moving through the end of Cancer. Mercury opposing Saturn in Capricorn Mercury opposing Saturn is going to take kind of the genius of the mind and put it in opposition with the status quo and how things are maintained. So it can be a really kind of bring you down to earth afternoon. Good for planning. Mercury in Cancer is a little bit sensitive, so it can be hard. It can feel a little bit deflating, or you might feel a little bit emotional, and like the world around is pretty apathetic. So just watch out for that, but it's also really good for grounding ideas. Mercury in Cancer is very imaginative, and Saturn is going to make sure that those things are practical as well. Okay, Tuesday. So we had right at midnight, the moon in Aquarius, sextile Mars and Aries. So that's a little fire, but again, it happens so late at night, you're probably asleep, unless you're awake with a baby. So fun to be able to catch all these transits. And then 7 a.m., just as we're waking up, Mars in Aries squaring Jupiter in Capricorn. So this is going to start these series of squares with Mars at the tail end of Aries squaring all of these Capricorn planets. And that is going to be fairly volatile, I would imagine, because Mars is so headstrong and empowered in his home sign of Aries, very much inspired to just go get them. And is really going to, when it hits the speed bumps and these squares with Capricorn, really has the possibility to overreact and kind of set fires happening. With Jupiter is probably the easiest of these squares. So it can be, not, Jupiter expands things and makes them kind of larger than life sometimes. So that can just be, Mars kind of biting off a little bit too much, or, just like trying to move the mountain by itself, which, is very ambitious, but may not actually be the best way to accomplish its aims. Then we have the moon trine Venus in Gemini. That's really nice. The moon in Aquarius trining Venus in Gemini, kind of inspiring the mind in the afternoon and before diving into watery Pisces in the evening around 8:30, which will, kind of pulls us into a much more intuitive, much more emotional, more dreamy space. We can feel really full, I think. We're still in the full moon phase, and so we can end up just feeling saturated, I think, with what's going on around us. We're coming off of that hyper rational Aquarius moon, and we kind of hit Pisces and feel the emotional impact of everything going on around us and the spiritual impact. And so when the moon is in water signs, we're kind of more open to experiencing the world through those ways. And then also, if you look in your chart, wherever Pisces is, you're gonna, sometimes that area becomes more sensitized. And then right after that, we have Mercury entering Leo. And that's really fun. Mercury has been in Cancer for a while, and Cancer, it's hard, it has trouble knowing what to say, it's thinking about the past, it's nostalgic, there's lots of memory. We're also thinking about safety, whereas in Leo, it's Mercury in any of the fire signs gets a little more soapboxy. And Mercury in Leo is going to speak from the heart, and is really going to want to be in its authenticity. Now, it's dramatic. It has a big flair for self-dramatization, through thinking that everything that's happening is the most epic thing that's ever happened and you have to know about it. But certainly there's more warmth in the voice, there's charisma, there's kind of action. So we'll just, we'll see what happens. And then again, wherever it's moving through your chart is going to be what you spend time thinking about and talking about, and kind of, perhaps where your mind is. And this is also my natal Mercury, so I love Mercury in Leo, and I'm excited for Mercury in Leo season, because I find the warmth and the richness of Leo to be just, I don't know, so fun, so feel good. So hopefully we get a little bit of that with all of the other dicey astrology happening. Wednesday is pretty quiet. We just have the moon in Pisces, sextile Uranus and Taurus towards the end of the day. So really, we're just kind of, this whole day, you can feel the moon's shift, you can feel Mercury's shift. And the only thing that we're building towards is this moon in Pisces, sextile Uranus and Taurus, which, the moon in Pisces is pretty flexible. And so that just might be, deciding to have something for dinner that you have never had before. Bring that that Taurus foodie quality, the Uranus nature of surprise, and the moon in Pisces being like, oh, I'm gonna try cooking this, or pretty gentle, nice Wednesday. Then Thursday, we've got the moon in Pisces, sextiling Jupiter in Capricorn. Easy peasy. That one, Jupiter in Capricorn might ground the moon in Pisces a little bit. Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces in Capricorn. We're going to be, thinking about practical matters, but that sextile is so gentle. Just think of sextiles as like tickling. You kind of get like inspired in a certain way, but it's not that strong. And then the moon conjoins Neptune in Pisces around noon on Thursday. So that can just, Neptune being the nature of fantasy, a little bit of numbing, a little bit of dreaminess. That's just take a long lunch break. And I don't know, maybe listen to music with your eyes closed and see what you find yourself daydreaming about. And then in the evening, the moon sextiles Pluto in Capricorn. That can feel a little bit heavier. But, with all of these lunar transits, we just let them kind of move through us. And it really depends on how sensitive to the moon we are. So if we are Cancer risings or have strong Cancer placements, or are born at night with the sun below the horizon, all of that can kind of give the moon a little bit more power, and we might feel these things a little bit more. But these lunar transits, right, there's so many of them. They just kind of come and go, and we just ride the waves of them and really just kind of enjoy the experience, knowing that it's really the sun that's going to like really make longer changes, and some of the other planets. So Friday, early morning, moon in Pisces, sextile Saturn in Capricorn. So that moon in Pisces, right, going through all of those sextiles to all of those planets in Capricorn, because Pisces and Capricorn are in a sextile relationship. So it can feel those things. It's not going to be harsh. Then we have the moon square Venus in Gemini as we're getting up right in the last moments before it enters Aries. So there's a big shift on Friday morning because we've got the moon entering Aries. So the transition from Pisces to Aries is so dramatic, this kind of drying off, which is really kind of this shift change. I don't know why I keep using that term. I think it was because we were in the hospital for so many days. We saw so many nurses, and so the shift changes were quite dramatic. Anyway, yeah, so the moon enters Aries, and that shift from Pisces to Aries, I think of all of the shifts, because all of the water signs are followed by fire signs, but Pisces to Aries seems to be the most dramatic. You kind of go from the most ethereal to kind of the brightest spark. So it dries off really fast, moves into action, right? Mars is in Aries, so the moon's ruler is very action oriented, and just right there. So you kind of hit the ground running Friday morning. And then we have Venus enter Cancer. And so, right, this is a dramatic change because Venus has been in Gemini for so long. And so for the first time, we've got Venus in a new sign in Cancer. Venus in Cancer is very sensitive, very sweet, very family oriented. And so she kind of retires from that kind of playful, super social space that she was in Gemini, and enters Cancer, and this is just a few days after Mercury left. So we're still not done with kind of the Cancer flavor, but we're experiencing it through a new planet now, with Venus in Cancer. And so this is going to be, being kind of more sensitive, more gentle with our affection, where we're placing it, really kind of wanting to feel safe in order to share the sweetest parts of ourselves. And really, Venus also represents value. So having a lot of value around, either our chosen family or our family, and really, when we value things, we spend time on them, with them, we put intention into them. So really having that value around family, safety, the past, being able to kind of savor some of the things that were overturned, in the sense of like tilling the earth and what comes up from the ground, through Mercury's retrograde in Cancer. Now we kind of have the will to tend it, not just to think about it, but to kind of bring our hearts to the practice of that. And so that's Venus in Cancer. And so the first part should be fairly sweet of Venus in Cancer. I think it'll be, the end gets dicier when we'll have Venus enter the oppositions to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, and then a square with Mars and Aries. So the end could be choppier. So really enjoy this time with Venus in Cancer, in the sweet spot in the beginning of Cancer. And then we will have the moon in Aries trine Mercury in Leo. And so this is important because this is really the first contact that we get with Mercury in Leo, in a direct aspect to the moon. So now we've got this nice fire and fire. Both the moon wants to move forward and Mercury is totally on board in Leo. So that's really fun. We can just kind of feel a little bit more invigorated. So that can be, whatever we harvested from the full moon, really kind of enlivening the mind and enlivening the body. So then Saturday, we have the moon in Aries conjoining Chiron in Aries. So we've got the moon, our body, conjoining the wound and the medicine. So that can really just be our dose of Aries medicine. Are we being true to ourselves? What, from which place are we acting? Are we acting in ways that are empowering ourselves and others? Or are we kind of just acting through bravado in ways that is not really helping ourselves or anyone else? And so, right, whenever we get this touch in with Chiron and Aries, That's really, the medicine is about the wounds of the self. And then we spend the whole day kind of without a lot of aspect, except for moving towards approaching the moon's trine to the sun in Leo. So that's really sweet. We've got both luminaries in fire signs in harmonious aspect to each other. That's just a really lovely mood. So I think Saturday should be pretty fun for us. And then we have the moon square Jupiter and Capricorn. So coming towards the end of Aries, it's hopping back into that square, which can get a little bit more dicey. And the square from Aries to Capricorn is the impulse towards action versus kind of the status quo and how hard it is to make change and, having to confront the real discipline it takes to stay on track and on task for a long time. And again, the Jupiter is first and Jupiter is easiest. Then we have deep in the night, the moon in Aries conjoining Mars in Aries. So if you stay up that late, you should get a nice little energy boost, but also just approaching that aspect, feeling that aspect build, and then it perfects at 2:35 in the morning, and then it kind of releases after that, and then we're moving towards the moon square to Pluto. So that can be invigorating. And then moon square to Pluto and Capricorn. And what did I say a couple weeks ago about how we have all these moon Pluto aspects that happen every Sunday? They're the Sunday scaries. So we wake up with the Sunday scaries in the moon square to Pluto and Capricorn. Just wrestling with fear. And then we've got the moon trine to Chiron. Mercury trine to Chiron. Okay, so I really like this aspect because we get the voice in the sign of in Leo, in the sign of the authentic self, trining the medicine to the self. So this is really kind of, it almost feels like you can wash your mouth out of kind of all of the words that are not yours. And I think it's been really hard for people to find their voice and use their voice. And we've all been in a really big questioning period about our own voices. I've noticed that social media has become almost entirely memes and almost entirely social justice memes. And I think that, that's really important to be sharing that information and to really be using your voice for that. But it's also, I think with Mercury and Leo, we might see more people actually using their voices to address these things, because I think talking about how we're integrating things personally, how we're reacting and responding to things, how we ourselves are feeling our hearts change in response to the world is a really brave and powerful thing for other people. And I know that, a lot of people, right, I think it's right that that people that have a lot of privilege and a lot of whiteness are not, trying to be over involved with their own experience. But I think Mercury and Leo kind of offers the opportunity for us really to integrate things into our authentic selves and using our voices to talk about how things are impacting us, not in this way of not in this way of talking about other people's experience, but this way of speaking the truth of our hearts. And so maybe we'll see a little bit more of that. And I think, right, speaking to the wound of Chiron and Aries, right, and being able to, there's that quotation, if you bring forth that which is inside of you will be your salvation. And so, and we have Mercury and Leo, we kind of have that opportunity to bring that stuff out, to kind of facilitate the growth of the authentic self through our voice, and through our words, and that powerful Chiron medicine really can help us find those, and kind of titrate how much of our voice is authentic and how much is not true to ourselves. Then we have the moon square to Saturn in Capricorn. So, right, it's moved through its squares to Jupiter and Pluto. This is the final one. The Saturn one, grounds it. So we've got the Jupiter one, which expands. And then we have the Pluto one, which kind of can inflate it either in fearful ways or egoic ways. And then we have Saturn, which kind of brings everything back down to the ground, which can feel a little harsh sometimes, right? This is kind of the rubber meets the road. Saturn in Capricorn of like, okay, what are you actually going to do about it, given the way that things are and given the limitations of reality? Let's come back and ground there. So I actually find that kind of deeply reassuring that we get this check-in with Saturn at the end of all of those things, even though it can kind of feel like a bummer, especially from a fire sign, which is very inspired and wants to do things right away. And then in the evening, we have the moon enter Taurus. If I could make a suggestion on Sunday evening, I would wait to eat dinner until after 7:30 p.m. Because it's just going to taste so much better with the moon in Taurus, and just going to offer so much more nourishment, and you're not going to have that rushing feeling of the moon in Aries. So I'd wait and eat at 7:30 because the moon is exalted in Taurus, and one of the, it's exalted in Taurus because the moon has to deal with how we take care of our bodies. And Taurus is really focused on creature comforts. And so we can kind of tend that feeling of helping ourselves feel well cared for and well nourished while the moon is in Taurus. Such sweet time of the month. Then we've got Monday, August 10th, moon in Taurus, sextiles Venus in Cancer. How sweet. We've got the moon exalted in Taurus, sextiling Taurus's ruler, Venus, and Venus in Cancer, ruled by the moon. So the moon and Venus are in mutual reception. This is a really sweet aspect. Kind of too bad it happens in the middle of the night. But I just hope you get really restful sleep from Sunday into Monday, and feel comfortable and safe while that's happening. Then first thing waking up, we've got Mercury and Leo square to Uranus and Taurus. This can be kind of like a big surprise in the morning, maybe a change of plans. Maybe you thought you were going into work, but then you have to do something before that. That kind of, it kind of starts the day off with a spark of electricity in the mind. And in those fixed signs, sometimes that can be, they're stubborn. It can be a little bit not irritating. I think of irritation more in the cardinal signs, but a little bit of like making a hard left, which feels really abrupt at the time. And then we have the moon conjoin Uranus. So you see, we've got that first aspect of 7 a.m. and then we don't have another aspect until 5 p.m. So we're kind of coming down off that Mercury square to Uranus, which is kind of the defining aspect of the day, but building towards the moon's conjunction to Uranus, which can just be a little bit disturbing, especially to a moon in Taurus that just likes things to be serene. And so it just hits that speed bump, that speed bump that's going to be there for the next 5 years or so of Uranus and Taurus. And so, we're all, we probably don't even notice it now. But just, because the moon hits that Uranus and Taurus every few days in different aspects. And then we, that should probably say, I'm not exactly sure why that says 1:49 p.m. It's probably 11:49 p.m. and I just forgot the other one, but I don't have my notes, so I can't double check. The moon square to Mercury in Leo late at night. Yeah, again, this can just be realizing something late on Monday night that's going to change the plan, or yeah, that moon in Taurus. Like getting ready for bed, and then Mercury in Leo gets inspired by something and has to spend the next couple of hours writing an email or talking on the phone or something, and just changing that plan of the moon in Taurus a little bit. And then finally, we have Tuesday, August 11th. This was kind of a long quarter. We've got the moon in Taurus trining Jupiter in Capricorn. So again, right, the moon's at the end of an earth sign. So now it's going to move through that succession of Jupiter, Pluto, Capricorn, but it's going to move through it from Taurus. And so they're both in earth signs. So there's going to be a trine, and the earth signs are very practical and they're kind of action oriented. So Taurus moves at the slowest pace of any sign. And so it's going to be able to integrate the complexity that Capricorn sees in the work in the world, in this, very kind of slow way, and understanding all the different implications. So these trines, right, when the moon is in Taurus and when the moon is in Virgo, to these Capricorn planets, really kind of help us feel like we're on the right track. And Taurus is slow and steady wins the race. So instead of feeling frantic and frustrated like we might have felt with those squares from the moon in Aries, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to move my body along this track in this slow way. And we're going to be able to make progress even if it is just a little bit at a time. So that can just, it's a good pacing aspect for the morning. So 10 a.m. moon in Taurus trine Jupiter in Capricorn. Your work's going to be at a good pace. And then we have the moon square to the sun at 10:45, and that's the entrance into the fourth quarter. But I go through the whole day of that entrance. So that's going to bring us into the final quarter of the lunar month. So the energy is definitely falling for the rest of it. So we kind of made it through the busiest part of the month in the last week. And then the lunar energy drops, and we're kind of not as interested in doing so much work. We're kind of, we quiet and we release on our way to the new moon. The moon sextiles Neptune in Pisces from Taurus. That's really sweet. Make sure you have a good lunch on Tuesday. I guess that's what to say about that. Maybe eat some fish with Neptune and Pisces. I don't know. Ethically sourced fish would be important. And then in the evening, we have that trine to Pluto and Capricorn. So again, just watch these things, because the moon, Pluto is a big thing for the moon as the container to try to contain. It's protected in Taurus, partially because it feels safe. So it can kind of hold the enormity of the Pluto and Capricorn problems in this way. So just spend some time, probably with some kind of self-care, even if self-care is just sitting on the couch with a comforter. And just honor the moon's time in Taurus. It's going to move into Gemini in the next day, and we'll get a little bit more cerebral. So just nourish the body while it's in Taurus. I hope you have a good week. This has been Whitney from Starhearth Astrology. You can find more of my work on my website at starhearthastrology.com or on my Instagram at starhearthastrology. And otherwise, I will be back in a week with the fourth quarter mooncast. Hope you all have a great week and are integrating all of the stories that you're living through in empowering ways. Okay, bye.